she used the California law as background for her.
Blake Lively is spiraling after the court shut down her latest legal maneuver. What she expected to be a winning tactic has now backfired dramatically, and the fallout is already showing.
Huge risk, and so it's not a fair fight. They're going into this with uneven risks on either.
In a desperate turn, she's now attempting to take cover under California's Me Too protections, using it as a legal shield to escape a defamation case she initiated herself. The irony is impossible to ignore.
This case, it looks.
Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds is facing outrage of his own after exploiting his 7-year-old daughter on the set of Deadpool and Wolverine, forcing her into a situation no child should ever be placed in.
Basically looking at his 7-year-old and being like, well, if you're not going to have what it takes to read this line, which happens to be about, Wolverine's penis, then I'll just go find another actor. Total sicko, the exact opposite.
At the center of this escalating disaster are sexual harassment allegations, explosive defamation countersuits, and a justice system struggling to interpret a newly minted law, all while Hollywood elites play the victim with stylists and publicists on standby.
As expectedly filed to be dismissed from the lawsuit against her. Her argument that she is presenting is that the lawsuit in and of itself is illegal, okay, because the matter at hand is pertaining to sexual harassment.
Everything began snowballing after California's updated Me Too statute, Code of Civil Procedure 47.1, officially took effect on January 1, 2020. What was intended as a safeguard is now creating legal chaos.
Me Too law out here in California, Code of Civil Procedure 47.1, is a problem for the Baldoni camp.
How big of a problem?
And this law, it's practically a suit of armor for anyone who wants to make accusations without worrying about accountability. It protects the accuser, so, while that consequences barely exist, even when someone's reputation is on the line.
She wants the court to use California law. That's her argument. And every federal court has to deal with these conflict of law issues that we call.
Blake moved to shut down Baldoni's defamation countersuit using California's newly reinforced mesh shield law. In practice, it functions like a legal hall pass, allowing someone to make accusations and then block the accused from defending themselves in court.
Want us to believe that Justin Baldoni is the creep in all of this. This is running parallel to him shouting at Justin Baldoni in a penthouse about his wife being on.
And it's effective because now Baldoni has to meet an almost impossible standard, proving actual malice. It's not enough to show she lied. He has to prove she knowingly lied with intent to harm. In today's legal landscape, where manipulation is often disguised as victimhood, that's a nearly unreachable bar.
Law relative to the lawsuit against Lively for defamation is a little problematic. So we have not seen the opposition yet that the Wayfair parties are going to make to the motion to dismiss filed by Lively, but I suspect that they're going to want New York over California law. We'll see what they do.
But is it valid, though, if the judge says, yes, you can use California law in this instance, could they dismiss his case?
And the consequences of losing go far beyond reputation. If he fails to win, he becomes financially liable for her legal fees, likely substantial, plus punitive damages, and potentially even triple damages. In short, he stands to lose his name, his finances, his company, and his public voice in one blow.
The real problem for him and our concern for Baldoni is if he goes forward and he loses his countersuit based on defamation, there's a huge risk to him because he then has to pay Lively's attorney's fees, treble damages, punitive damages.
Blake's legal team then pulled one of the most manipulative arguments imaginable. They claimed Baldoni has no case because Blake believed her own story. That's it. That's their defense. According to them, if someone convinces themselves of a lie, it can't be malicious. Delusion, in their eyes, now counts as innocence.
Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove in this defamation lawsuit. So he actually has to show that Blake Lively's anything she said, any communication she made about SH, that they were made in malice. And so that's a higher standard that he has to.
But the public isn't fooled. People can see exactly what's happening here. A powerful Hollywood figure, not a vulnerable victim, is using laws designed to protect the voiceless as a personal shield. These protections were meant for those without money, status, or a platform, not celebrities with red carpet access and brand deals. The optics are revolting. It's the moral equivalent of someone using a food bank box to store leftover caviar.
It's a problem that wouldn't be there if they had done this lawsuit a year and a half ago. So this is a brand new law. And what it does is it requires Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove.
And while all this is unfolding, one name demands even more scrutiny: Ryan Reynolds. The man celebrated for his charm, quick wit, and family-friendly image is hiding something far darker. At the center of it all is what can only be described as the Deadpool parenting disaster.
Has to look at the totality of that evidence and say, is that malice? And there's certainly evidence that would lead one to believe a jury could.
Ryan Reynolds reportedly cast his 7-year-old daughter in the upcoming Deadpool film because apparently a highly explicit superhero franchise is the perfect place for a child to make her acting debut. But somehow, the situation doesn't just stop at bad judgment, it gets Eve.
No person, I don't care how funny you think you are in Hollywood, would want their precious daughter, of all people, to make comments about Hugh Jackman's penis being in their father's.
One of the lines in the script reportedly included a crude reference involving Hugh Jackman and her father. And remember, we're talking about a 7-year-old child. Naturally, she was uncomfortable and didn't want to say it. So what did Ryan Reynolds do? Did he reassure her or remove the line? Apparently not. Instead, he allegedly told her that if she refused, he would replace her with someone else, basically pressuring his own daughter, just in a parental version of blackmail.
Have to investigate any further because there is no father in his right mind who would want a scene in which his daughter makes a, I guess, homosexual joke about the relationship between him and this Wolverine character who we're starting to have questions about their relationship in real.
He openly brags about it on recording, like it's some kind of hilarious parenting moment, as if pressuring your own child to say something sexually inappropriate in a superhero movie is peak comedy. Then director Sean Levy casually adds that they had her repeat the line anywhere from 70 to 500 times. I'm sorry, but making your daughter do hundreds of takes of something that disturbing isn't filmmaking. That's psychological warfare.
Looking at other people to play.
Yeah, but Ryan, to our discredit, we made Nezzy do I'm not you 70 to 500 versions of that line.
Yeah, I'm going to pay for that.
And the hypocrisy doesn't end there. The same man who coerced his own daughter into speaking sexually explicit dialogue on camera has the audacity to label Justin Baldoni a predator. While hiding behind humor and brand deals, he crossed a line no parent or professional should ever approach.
And that's what he says. So he kind of basically forced his daughter to do the line, or else he's going to replace her as an actress in this movie. She's 7 years old.
Then came his Rule 12b, 6 filing. Most legal motions are technical and restrained, but not this one. His submission was laced with hostility, ego, and personal attack. It read less like a legal document and more like a courtroom takedown, crafted to humiliate Baldoni rather than argue law. It didn't sound like it came from an attorney. It sounded like Reynolds wrote it himself, determined to turn litigation into a public spectacle.
Get dismissed at the 12B6 phase because Brian Friedman will be able to plead around by doing a second amended complaint, and he'll be able to outline, the claims of actual malice and that she wasn't reasonable when she reported this harassment.
His goal wasn't just dismissal, it was degradation. He wanted to use the court system as a stage to embarrass Baldoni while protecting his own image. It was vindictive, theatrical, and entirely self-serving.
They're not points that a judge decides. Those are not legal determinations. Those are factual determinations. And we leave all of our factual decisions to a fact finder. In this case, that'll be a jury. So Brian Friedman more than likely will get past this.
This is not the man people should be idolizing. The Deadpool persona he built now bleeds into his parenting, his legal tactics, and his public behavior. The PR machine can spin all at once, but the facts remain. He used his daughter as a prop, turned a professional conflict into a smear campaign, and weaponized fame in ways that make his movie villains look restrained.
Hey, when I want your opinion, I'll take Wolverine's out of your mouth.
That's kid.
Guiltily, that is my daughter, Inez.
I'm so sorry we have to admit that.
And I am father of the year over here for allowing her to say.
So no, Ryan Reynolds isn't the quirky underdog people imagine. He sits comfortably at the top of Hollywood's power pyramid, throwing punches behind sarcasm and brand polish. But now, with recordings, evidence, and a fed-up public, the facade is cracking. The mask is slipping fast, revealing a man far closer to assassin than comedian.
It's just unbelievable. He is admitting that she was not, Nezzy, as she is called, was not comfortable doing this line. And Ryan essentially said to her that I'm going to find another actor, which is...
Because when the cameras shut off, the charm disappears too. Behind closed doors, reports describe him as volatile, manipulative, and vengeful. He's allegedly engaged in shouting matches in penthouses and accused Baldoni of being a predator. Not in filings, not in open court, but in private conversations with powerful industry executives. Not because he believed it, but because he could. It's Hollywood's version of Mean Girls, with Reynolds playing Regina George in a tailored suit.
Reynolds' statement, as contained in the allegations, is that he went and called Baldoni a predator. I mean, that is just such an over-the-top statement, and it does, just in its own right, seems...
And then there's the knife character in Deadpool. Let's not pretend it was harmless satire. Reynolds later admitted the character was modeled after Justin Baldoni, the same man he mocks in interviews, attacks behind the scenes, and targets legally just happens to be the inspiration for a sleazy, villainous parody in a billion-dollar franchise. That isn't coincidence. That's calculated character assassination with a production budget.
The Deadpool scene, the nice pool scene in Deadpool, would be relevant here. I think that that backs up the whole idea of malice and what the intent was of Ryan Reynolds in the statements that he was making. Whether or not you're not going to be able to get every little interview that Ryan Reynolds ever did where you try to kind of show that he's a bad character. A lot of that would not.
This is what courts call character evidence. And while normally excluded, it becomes relevant if it reflects a pattern tied to the case. If the judge allows it, a jury may finally see the truth. This wasn't random, it wasn't playful, and it wasn't accidental. It was malice disguised as entertainment, and the mask is finally being ripped away.